James,
Raf.
I've got some bad news for two demographics of people.
Okay, go on.
Number one,
Yep.
trivia enthusiasts around the Everleigh area.
Okay. You just got smoked.
And two,
Yep.
down round listeners. I've got some bad news. Some crazy ass white boys are back on their trivia bullshit.
Now, it's been a while since we've checked in this way because we've been sensible for 9 to 12 months. It was the case for a while, and true down round heads would remember this well, that we'd go to trivia before our down round recording.
Trivia happened to us.
Trivia. We
would meet at the pub, and it just happened that trivia started happening when we were.
And we would always make the bargain that we would play for the first half. Mm-hmm. I know that multiple people who listen to the podcast and have hosted trivia in the past were like, "Boys, that's really fucking annoying."
yeah.
In fact, my sister who does pub trivia, when I told her that, she was like, "That's really fucking annoying."
But the bargain being, if we were winning, we would stay.
If we were winning, we would stay for the second half.
Now, obviously, A, we changed nights, and B, I think the owners at the time was like, we're at Atomic, and we moved pubs, trivia moved around, things changed, this, that, and the other. Whatever it is, for the last few months, no trivia has occurred at the pubs we've been at.
Until tonight.
So we have a law.
And then we happen to be winning at halftime.
At halftime. We happen to be winning at halftime. Now.
Did we win in the end? No.
We came second.
We also won the jug in the bonus round.
We did win
although we didn't claim it at the time. And the pub, because Raf kicked up a stink about it, I gave him a little
As is my right.
As your right. Gave him a little piece of paper that says one jug on it. and assured us in a we'd be able to bring back the piece of paper that has one jug and, I guess one of the names of the people at the bar on it.
One jug, Ryan S.
And that will be honoured. So we'll let you know in a
plus
week.
Plus our $50 for coming second.
$50 plus a jug. So that's why we're recording quite late tonight.
On a Tuesday night, though, so you're going to be probably hearing this on somewhat later in the week.
So that's right. So the point of this long run-up is that if we sound, lively and celebratory this evening, know that it's because we are back on our bullshit. Alrighty, but actually this week is pretty loaded. Pretty loaded. There's so much happening. There's a ton of shit happening that we have to talk about. Up top, Meta. There's some announcements coming from Meta that have closed the loop on a few things we've been talking about over the past few weeks. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Apple. There's some updates or a news story that's come out just today on Apple's AI efforts that I think is an interesting again, footnote to some of the things we've been talking about.
Cluely? Maybe a bit of Cluely stuff.
I think we might talk about Cluely at the back end of this episode. That could be one from our premium listeners. And also Elon Musk's X, has a new head of product. Who's he? Interesting. He's someone who's come up and down.
He has. I mean, and then some things that we might not get to, but we might. You never know. If we're flying fair use on AI content, books, that kind of thing, and NVIDIA, biggest company on earth. I don't know how much I can expand on that last one.
In fact, let's just say it right now. NVIDIA is again the biggest company on earth.
Great.
Took them a while to crawl back from the release of DeepSeek. But
they're worth more than $3 trillion. So I guess we ticked that one off.
Oh, we ticked it off. Great. We're making progress. We're winning trivia. We're knocking through topics. All right, but Meta. So you will have remembered over the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about, there's been a couple of news updates over that time, about the fact that, Meta have not been doing all that well in AI, right? They released their Llama 4, which is like their LLM, their competitor to GPT and Gemini and Claude. It's their version. It's open source. They released Llama 4, or at least part of the Llama 4 release a couple months ago, and has broadly agreed that it wasn't that good.
No.
And it seems like that has driven Mark Zuckerberg full-on mental.
Yes.
So we talked about last week the fact that there was reporting out that Meta was. We talked about how they acquired Scale AI, or acquired 49% of Scale AI, and the rumor was that Meta was offering 9-figure bonuses for people to jump ship from the top tier AI labs.
We also talked about their investment in Safe Super Intelligent, but yes, the $100 million their attempt at investing it's like basically buying the investors in it, whatever. Blah, blah, blah.
And a bit of extra color on the details is that apparently Mark Zuckerberg has been personally texting the top flight AI talent around Silicon Valley and elsewhere. And there's kind of like a running joke among people who are AI developers, like, have you gotten a text from Mark Zuckerberg, like a WhatsApp message?
And now is the time to come clean. James, have you received?
I have not received a message from Mark Zuckerberg.
I also have not received a text from Mark Zuckerberg.
To me, that suggests that I'm B team. I'm B team AI talent.
Tier 2.
He may loop back around and scoop me up. But I wasn't first cab off. I wasn't bell of the ball. I was not bell of the ball.
But yeah, so as we said last week or the week before, whenever it was, $100 million signing bonuses, which are quite astronomical.
Now, to be clear, Meta has denied that. They've denied that they were shopping around for 9-figure deals. I think it's fair to say, though, that they were throwing around
big numbers.
Maybe they didn't breach the 9 figures. They didn't get past 100 million. But I would imagine these compo packages have been pretty substantial.
Yeah, and so firstly, to give that context, I mean, there's take one, it's a huge amount of money, and I think that is true regardless. I see people throwing around things like, yeah, but, and I even brought this up, like, okay, the actual, like the capex they're spending, like we're talking about companies spending $50 billion a year on capex. Already, I did the like, okay, capex. Yeah, sure, but that's an asset that you write off over 6 years, depreciate, blah, blah, blah. I know the finance stuff. Don't worry about that shit. But, so, like, maybe it's justified. I saw another take was like, if you look at the NBA or FA Premier League, they pay those soccer players these large bonuses, and these are companies that are worth far less. Yeah. But, like, that's a team with 5 people, you know? Come on. Like,
yeah,
bit different, and like merchandise based on that person and stuff. That's a little bit different. Yeah. It's still a huge amount. It's still the biggest. We're talking about the biggest like pay packages you've ever.
It's still unprecedented, and it's also worth remembering as well that this comes in the context of, you know, you're not hearing about profligate salaries being paid to software engineers in general. Like, software hiring is down.
Yeah,
you're not hearing about those classic scenarios where someone would walk out of a Stanford computer science degree and straight into a $400K job.
Yeah, which was to do nothing.
Which was like the table stakes for a while. So it's kind of like, if at the moment the compensation at the top of the pile for AI is absolutely mind-bogglingly astronomical, but for like your average software developers, you're not seeing the numbers you
totally big, and which all speaks to, again. And this is all the preamble still, so you're still in preamble territory. This idea that there is this feeling that there's almost a winner-takes-all / existential vibe to this, like, we need to win AI or we're fucked.
Yeah, and I think that's the big takeaway for, like, Mark Zuckerberg panicking to this degree, where he is like, if we don't have this top-flight talent, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Certainly suggests that, like, that's his thesis,
yeah.
Right?
Like, yeah, and he's always been super aggressive. But point being, it's working.
Yeah, so
that's the latest.
This is what we loop back to. So basically, Mark Zuckerberg issued an internal memo which announced this super intelligence group, which we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks. It's run by Alexander Wang,
and by the way, Alexander Dr. Yeah, it's not just an Instagram handle or Twitter handle.
Yeah, and I feel like this is new. He's just dropped the E.
The E is gone.
It's just, Alexander Dur with no
Alexander,
E. Which I get.
Alexander Wang. Forget the E.
When someone pays $16 billion for your company or whatever it was, you can start doing crazy shit with your name. You start going crazy. So he is heading up their superintelligence division. And again, we talked about this the other week. What does superintelligence mean? No one fucking knows. But this is how they're branding it. He's running it. Nat Friedman, who is the former GitHub boss, he has been brought in to also work on the superintelligence team. And basically, Zuckerberg sent around this internal memo where he basically did a victory lap of all the people he's managed to coax over with these big bonuses. So just I'm not going to read all these names, but just so you get a sense of what we're talking about here. And he basically, in the email, he's listed their names plus what they're known for. And it's really like a clear, like, look at the people I've managed to get. So he's kind of like, a guy named Shu Chao Bai, co-creator of GPT-4o voice mode and O4 Mini, previously led multimodal post-training at OpenAI. Huiwen Chang, co-creator of GPT-4o's image generation, previously invented Master GIT and Muse text-to-image architecture at Google Research. There's about 10 other names.
Also, I noticed something about the ethnicity of these names.
Basically, I would say all of them are Chinese.
But this is what you hear as well. You're like 2/3 of AI PhD graduates are Chinese.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. And like that's one of the others is whether they're Chinese American or they've come from the People's Republic of China. Chinese engineers are driving the AI revolution, or they're still there working at DeepSeek or whatever. Yeah. That's just.
But that's almost an aside because so this led to crisis talks at OpenAI. There was an email sent out on a Saturday being like, "We are responding to this. We're going to do something about this.
We're tweaking comp.
Like we're going to respond to this." But here, in my opinion, this is like the my take, because the takes I've heard is like, oh yeah, well they play soccer players this, and if you're spending this much on capex, here's my take, which I think is an original take so far. This is what happens when you've had over the last, I guess 18 months in particular, OpenAI has moved from this kind of cool, cool's a weird word, but like almost like religious-esque place where we are building the next god.
Machine intelligence.
We are building intelligence. Everyone here is like a cracked engineer with this kind of who's bought into this zeitgeist of AI being.
We're safely in developing AI. That's totally change the world.
And it ends in part of the mythos is things like Yudkowsky and the people being like AI will kill everyone, and less wrong forums and fucking effective altruism, and then like Zen or whatever cults who are killing people over this shit, whatever. I know a lot of you are going to be like, "What the hell is he talking about?"
But
the cult-like vibe,
the weird AI cult vibes, yes.
Which is so. That was what attracted so many people to, I think, OpenAI. Same is true with Anthropic, and the same was true probably years ago at Google, and maybe to a certain extent still today, but like to DeepMind and whatnot at Google. I know Google acquired DeepMind, but same vibe. Like the deep research people who are just hyper obsessed with the mission, I guess, and have and can foresee a future that's very different to the future we're in now, and the importance of the mission they're doing now. Whether you buy into that or not, I'm in the latter camp. That's up to you. But regardless, that was the OpenAI thing. Over the past 18 months, in particular kind of 6 months, Sam Altman has been moving the company towards a for-profit model. Social good, trying to basically move it away from being a not-for-profit. We've talked about this ad nauseum.
Yeah.
The struggles that they've had with, like, obviously they're basically running this company as a for-profit company. Like, this is like a product-led company. It's ChatGPT, subscription, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Sure, there's some API stuff. Sure, we do some cool research, but at the end of the day, we're now trying to be the next Apple.
Exactly. We're trying to be the next Apple, and that part of that comes with them attempting to restructure the company.
Yeah.
But part of it, as you said, is focus. Like, the goal is to build the next Apple. We want to build the personal assistant. We want to build all this stuff. Devices with Johnny Ive.
Yeah.
It's no longer a research-driven organization.
And so all of a sudden, you're in the Meta and Microsoft and Google, whatever, but Meta ball game now. Because if it's not a mission-led company anymore, and you're not like some fucking religion that's going to make the new god safely, and you're the only people who should be entitled to program the god or whatever. If you're just a product-led company that's profit-based, then we're just fucking talking about compensation.
Exactly.
Here. And so if someone's offering 100 mil and there's no longer any fucking religion, why wouldn't you go to the people offering 100 mil sign-on bonus?
Exactly. And you would imagine that Zuckerberg would have sweetened the deal with all sorts of different stuff. There would have been, I imagine, quality of life, workplace benefits, all this sort of stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm hearing as well. It's like it's also like 9 to 10 hour days, weekends. I literally heard that as part of the deal was like lifestyle.
Yeah, you don't have to exactly. You don't have to put in 80-hour weeks. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. If you abandon the mission aspect, you're no longer a mission-led company. You're a product-led company. Why would any of your engineers feel this like religious compulsion to work there? You're going to go for the people that can offer the biggest checks, and the people who can offer the biggest checks are Meta. And like really Meta. I mean, Google is not going around offering those salaries. Very clearly, Apple is not, as we're about to talk about. Yeah. Apple is like institutionally pays less than almost any other Silicon Valley company.
You have to, as people at Apple say, you have to pay at the cafeteria.
Yeah, you got to pay at the cafeteria for Apple, and like people in equivalent roles at Apple have always been paid less. And it's partially because Apple does have mystique and mission and whatever. They can get away with it slightly, but they are slamming into a brick wall with AI, where it's like, if you want the talent, you have to be willing to open your wallet. Mark Zuckerberg is like constitutionally a guy who is like, just fucking make it rain.
Yes.
Make it rain on problems, whether it means like spending billions on WhatsApp and Instagram or hiring the right people. And whether it's going to work, who knows?
Yeah.
Because it hasn't worked for them yet on AI, but that's what they've done. And I think just like to back in your thing, like most of the people on that list of this fucking victory lap, pow, those people are OpenAI people. There's like 2 Anthropic ones. There's a Gemini or 2, but most of them are people who worked on GPT 4.0 or 03.
But you can see why this is a cultural problem at OpenAI, right? When it's like, literally you're seeing your leaders and your best talents jumping ship, and again, you'd be able to get big offers as well at other places, but part of it is like, no, we're the mission, we're at the best place. Like this is the place that is going to be the company. We are going to be the Microsoft, the Google. We are the most important company of our generation. But then all your leaders are jumping ship somewhere else.
Yeah.
Culturally, there's a poison, you know? There's a cancer. There's a cancer at the heart of OpenAI, dare I say.
That's true. Now,
but you know what I mean? Like, you lose the magic.
Totally. Although I do, at the same time, even though I fully agree that OpenAI are product-led and all of a sudden they're now sort of swimming in the same fetid swamp as Meta, at the same time, you do still, at least Sam Altman and OpenAI can sit there and promise, we are trying to build a new paradigm.
Yes.
It is product-led. It is like very marketing heavy. But like, we've got Johnny Ive, we're going to build a successor to the smartphone.
Yeah.
We're building the personal
dream
assistant.
is there. What's the dream at Meta?
At Meta, like, you are building a slot machine.
Yes.
Let's just put it out here. You are absolutely building the slot machine par excellence.
Yeah.
Actually, I ended up...
it's maintaining the worst part of the current paradigm. Let's be frank.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I don't know where it is now. I feel like
Maybe you dreamt it.
I found it earlier, but like, I think it was in my Facebook Messenger app. There was like the chat with AI. They've got a chat with AI buttons now, and it just shows you like a grid of bots you can chat to. This is pretty prominent in the messenger.
Jesus Christ!
And like,
I haven't seen this. But...
No. And I'm not going to dig into this, but the screen that it showed me straight up.
Oh. I mean, I caught a glimpse.
Russian girl.
Oh.
Your ex-girlfriend 2.0.
But a second version of her?
Mean mum.
No, don't have one.
Police officer?
Fuck that.
Granny cougar.
Cougar granny, okay.
Cow. It's a picture of a cow, and it's had 2.7 million messages.
I empathize with it.
This is all... This is what you're building.
Wait, hold on. You hit chat with AI, and like the 5th or 6th is Granny Cougar. The second is Russian girl.
It's the second one.
Fucking hell.
The second one is Russian girl.
But Granny Cougar easily cracks the top 10.
Yeah. Granny Cougar.
Fucking hell.
With the opening message, "Hey sweetie, let's hang out with me and let's chat about what's on your mind."
Oh, sweetie. What?
I'm just going to send her a message. I find you repulsive.
This is what is 100
Oh
billion.
my stars, James. That's the most interesting compliment I've ever gotten. What did I do to shock you so?
$100 million to work on this.
You got $100 million to build out the next
Granny
generation of Granny Cougar.
Granny Cougar 2.0. What was the 2.0 one as well? That was cursed as well.
Yeah, I've lost it. Oh my god, it's actually like it's populated my entire messenger list with
Grannies.
these bots as I've tapped them. So if anyone looked over my shoulder, they would think I've been talking to them. Your ex-girlfriend 2.0.
Your ex-girlfriend 2.0.
Again, this is the sort of like deeply antisocial civilization-ending content you're working at. Again, for $100 million, whatever. But again, this comes with, putting aside the mission stuff, the moment you're playing in the same realm, like the only companies that can feasibly offer those sort of salaries are ones that are already
worth $1 trillion plus. Let's be frank.
or are vastly profitable.
Yeah.
Like obviously Meta can do it, and Meta is willing to make big swings as one of the few publicly listed massive market cap tech companies that is clearly willing to make big swings. Look at the metaverse and VR shit that it pumps so much money
You
into.
don't hear about so much.
No.
Oh, in VR, yes, but metaverse is...
Apple is against doing it. Microsoft, I guess, could probably pay those salaries.
They do it, but like they don't have a consumer, at least, product. I mean, I wonder why Microsoft haven't swung harder. I guess they're so... You know what you're working on in Microsoft, which is like you're working on, productivity software for an enterprise. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Like-
and Microsoft's strategy in AI just seems to be, we need to be.
It's a team strategy.
It's a team thing. It's like we have Microsoft Azure. We just want to be in a place where you're paying for tokens to run your AI models, and we're going to build our own ones internally.
Yeah, but and we're upselling you your Office suite. Like we're upselling an extra $30 a month.
They don't need to be bleeding edge, and they're quickly learning that their deal with OpenAI is too annoying to work with.
Yeah.
So they're like, what I'm saying is Microsoft is not going to pay $100 million bonuses or anything close to it.
No, but I think it's because, as we discussed previously, like Zuckerberg has obviously recognized like this is basically existential for Facebook, which again I didn't see a few months ago.
I didn't either. In fact, if you go back and listen to us,
he might be wrong.
He could be, but on Down Round the other month, I said, I feel like his goal is, as long as it's open source, like we make the open source competitive.
Yeah.
And they're sharing content.
Commodify your compliments.
Exactly. Commodify it. Bring the cost of creating content down to as close to zero as possible, and we win. I feel like something has flicked in his brain where he's like, no, that's not enough.
Yeah. As again we said, I feel like there's probably some chart somewhere where time on site has decreased and it has gone to OpenAI.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Or a variation of that. And it's been like, holy fuck, chatting to AI is a competitor to social media. Like, I think that's just a guess. But my gut tells me that's the flick that switched.
I think
the switch that flicked? What do you flick? You flick a switch.
You flick a switch. I think the switch that's flicked is that he's realized that if you win on foundation models, everything else
comes from that.
Everything else, you can build anything else on top of it. If you win the baseline, if you're OpenAI and you win, you can build the distribution, and the distribution will come naturally.
As well as if you have the technology, then people will build the apps on top of it. Like in that, if something is good enough as coding, I now do this. I do this more and more and more. If I'm like, I was doing like a guitar teaching app the other day because I was like, do you ask AI to teach you how to play guitar, or just say like, build me an app that teaches me guitar? You make it build an app that does it. So like there is a thing where it's like, okay, if you're like, if the job to be done is solutions to problems, you're not asking an AI to code for you or to like respond to a message. You're just asking it to like do the thing you want it to do. I don't know. I can see where a paranoia would come from. I don't know if I fully agree with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it logically comes from, and lots of people are starting to talk about this, that software becomes quite disposable. And we've talked about it in the past. It's kind
Yeah.
of like you just say, I want to do X, and it builds you an interface that does that task that you want. And then all of a sudden, you don't need a whole suite that does a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
It's completely function-based and whatever. Maybe they extrapolate that logic to the giant, complex, weird distribution that Facebook has. I think, without overcomplicating it, I think they have recalibrated to be like, if we don't win this,
People are going to spend a lot less time on our
and then we're fucked because everything is ads and whatever. We're vulnerable.
Yeah.
And clearly there's desperation here for him, not only to spend a huge amount of money, but to do this kind of like standing on top of a tower of skulls and be like, I took all these cunts from
Yes.
OpenAI.
Yes.
I fucking got them.
Yeah.
There's clearly an amount of joy going on there.
Yeah, for sure.
And whatever. And again, as we said before, they've had lots of very smart people working on Llama to date, and there were some victories, but you wonder if they're going to stick with the open source thing as well.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like a big shift. So I could see them being like, no, it's proprietary now.
No, it's all completely locked in. Anyway, we'll blend this into the Apple chat because I think this is also relevant. So Bloomberg reported today that Apple have been in conversations with OpenAI and Anthropic, so GPT and Claude, to essentially provide the backbone for the new revitalized Siri. Essentially, kind of surrendering and being like, the LLMs we're building internally are not up to snuff.
Well, it's almost like we're not going to build on Siri. Almost, it is a new Siri, right?
Yeah.
Well, go back to, again, I think we said a few months ago, it was reported that they are building a new Siri Siri LM or something like that. They were calling it. There was some internal name that was leaked. I think it was like Siri LLM.
Yeah, LLM Siri or something. Yeah.
And that they were talking about, but it was also 2 years away. It was also a long, long way away where they were doing a complete rebuild of Siri with LLMs and AI.
And keep in mind, this is what they basically promised.
Yeah, that was supposed to come out 6 months ago.
And didn't. And now clearly it sounds like they can't build.
Yeah. And so it sounds like, well, at least senior leadership there doesn't sound like it's confirmed yet, but when you hear this type of leak from Apple, it's like obviously a very long way along.
Yeah.
For it to come out at all. But yeah, sounds like they're potentially abandoning Siri 2 for getting a third party.
Getting OpenAI or Anthropic to build it, which would be great. I mean, and the story in Bloomberg essentially reported that there are executives at Apple who have basically said, we are never going to catch up. We're not going to build a frontier model. This is the only solution we have, and the only way to stay competitive is to do that.
Now, first thing to point out is like, that's a crazy bag fumble. If true, like if this happens, yeah, Siri is what, more than 10 years old, nearly 15 years old, right?
It's more, yeah, it's 15 years old. 15
years old, and you scrap it in place of, a company that's been around, or at least the product's been around for 3 years. That is a big L. Shout out to Bonix, big L. But two, I think it's the right move. In that, I think that here's my hot take.
Okay.
Feel free to disagree. It's okay. Feel free to just contemplate it, marinate on it, not come to a decision right now.
Okay. And yep.
Let it kick around. I think that it would make sense for, and this comes with the context of like me experiencing Apple's AI and me loving the iPhone.
The device. Yep.
Big fan of the device. Big fan of my computer.
Mm-hmm.
My iPad.
They make lovely devices.
HomePods, AirPods.
AirPods are great.
Apple Watch.
Yeah. These are great products.
I like the idea, the more I think about it, and it will be a change in kind of strategy of, I have my device, I have my phone, and I choose in the horrible settings app what my AI device, my AI company is. And I choose whether it's OpenAI, ChatGPT, I choose whether it's Anthropic, Gemini, or X AI, I suppose, or Mistral or DeepSeek, perhaps. Who knows? I choose it, and that AI company has full access to my emails, my calendar, my SMS, my screen. You can see what I'm fucking viewing on my screen, Safari, browsing, maps, you name it. It's got complete access to my phone, and it's my Siri, and I ask it questions, and I say, the other day James recommended an article. I forgot what platform it's on. What article was it? And it tells me, because it's just scanning and logging everything. Obviously, with the understanding right now that that's a whole lot of context windows and whatever, but I like and I feel like this is an interesting suggestion. It's an orthogonal suggestion to the current paradigm, which is obviously like Google is the modular player, Android is on Samsung, Huawei. I don't know any other Android phones. OnePlus One, is that that's
Pixel?
The Pixel, of course. They make the Pixel. Android, you install on various things. They could skin it. You could kind of choose to, as an OEM, as the manufacturer, you could choose to put Android however you want. This, that, and the other. Apple was the vertically integrated. The only choice you get is the App Store and Apple, and iPhone OS, etc., Phone OS, blah blah. What I'm suggesting is the paradigm kind of changes, where you've got like Google are the integrated player, because on Android you can use Gemini only, most likely, to access everything. Whereas on Apple, all of a sudden, they're the modular player. They're modularized, and I can use OpenAI, and I can use Claude, this, that, and the other. And like, you can bring your AI. It is, to a certain extent, surrendering some of the power over to these AI players. So we've talked about before, like, there is this lock-in vibe where once these things have memory and they have history and they can reference older conversations and whatever, like, you probably gonna want to stay with one. But anyway, that's the kind of big idea, right? I buy an iPhone because it's the nicest device and it's the fastest, and it's got the best chips, and it still has my privacy in mind. But I have this modularity when it comes to choosing my LLM of choice, basically. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably. I imagine this is the way they're thinking about it, and
because the other option is that we use the fucking Apple AI, and we know that.
Well, to be clear, it's not clear from the story. Like, they're having conversations with both of them. But I'm not sure if the answer is that they want to have something modular, or if they're
they're deciding.
They're deciding there's one.
Well, the reporting seems to suggest they're just going to choose one and go with that.
and make it that. Now, the thing that's a challenge is that does just like completely throw out the window the Apple strategy of the past, let's say like 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the moment they become modular, and it's so clear that everything they've done, even recently, has been continuing that strategy. We go to the Apple chips, the Apple silicon.
Yeah.
We build our own. We spend billions of dollars to build our own radio modem, like our own.
Yeah.
We own everything.
Well, and even in AI, they have this whole setup where, when they do go off to a cloud infrastructure for AI inference,
it's a handshake system to go to like
it's a
private servers.
There's private things running on Macs with like M3 chips in them or whatever. This like convoluted system to keep it like all of your data has to stay to you. We can't even access it, even though we're doing this handshake system on our own servers.
Yeah. So like everything they've done is very clearly to be like, we build the silicon all the way up through the App Store, all the way up to like the user interface that you touch and interact with your photos and messages or whatever is us. We do it all. And to bring us back to the Meta conversation from earlier, where Meta are clearly like, and I'm projecting, but I think the assumption is right, that Mark Zuckerberg is like, if we don't own this AI shit, we're fucked.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. What I just suggested, though, is probably inevitably leads to doom, insofar as if actually all my data is in OpenAI or in Anthropic or in Gemini in particular on my iPhone, then the switching cost is much less if I move over to a different device.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like that's obviously the fear, but I guess the strategy here is like our devices are so good that you're going to stay with us because we are the best device for AI.
Yeah, and I don't know if that holds. I mean, like, it may hold, but it's
You're
also
probably right.
But it's also, let's say theoretically they go with OpenAI as their partner. GPT powers Siri, and they surrender and say, okay, we'll use our own LLMs for various things on device, but like the personal assistant, we're not going to be able to compete with the bleeding edge things. We know customers are going to be like, well, that's dog shit compared to this.
Yeah, in particular, Gemini, let's be frank.
We're running with this, and that's how we're doing. 4 years' time after they ink this deal, and then Siri's run by GPT, the fucking Johnny Ive machine comes out.
Yeah.
Which also runs that. You've now got this frictionless space where someone can be like, oh shit, I'm going to buy that. And maybe the first device isn't actually a replacement of the iPhone.
No.
It's complementary.
Yeah.
You're like, okay. All of a sudden, Apple has no control over its ecosystem anymore.
Totally.
And then when the V2 or V3 device comes out, and it is a whole new paradigm.
And the switching cost is zero.
It's zero.
It has all your contacts, and it has all your browsing history, and it has all your history of AI like interactions.
All of a sudden, your iPhone sales fall off a cliff, then where's Apple?
They're putting themselves in the hands of another company, which is kind of what more recently with Qualcomm, which they hated with the modems, but like previously with Intel, it's the same. And even with Microsoft in the
and they hate it.
Adobe, they hated it with Adobe back in the day with Photoshop.
Basically, they find themselves in the position that Meta was with them over the whole mobile era.
Yeah.
Where Meta was like, every time we want to do something, we have to be thinking, does Tim Cook enjoy this?
No, exactly. But that is the situation they're in. Now, this is business strategy, folks. But where it's like, okay, on the one hand, we have our bullshit crap AI that customers are using. On the other hand, we have hot flames AI that customers love. If we put theirs in, people will love it. Because they already are showing that they love it, and we're never going to catch up. It's not like, once that's integrated in their system, it's not like they're going to their internal team is going to be like somehow catch up to the OpenAI system, which now has even more money because it's like got the distribution of Apple. So yeah, like it's a tough spot.
Yeah, and I mean,
so the only thing to do, I think, is to make people compete against each other and have a bit of Gemini and a bit
and make it a platform.
Of Anthropic. As you say, the problem is like, OpenAI has already announced they've got a competitor. They know Gemini has a competitor, obviously, with Android. Anthropic's the only one that isn't talking about a fucking device to compete.
And it does seem like Anthropic are doing a lot more corporate, like enterprise stuff.
Yeah, but Anthropic also doesn't... don't get me wrong. Every time, best at code, best at words, for sure. I reckon. Oh, like marginally. Sorry, I shouldn't say for sure. It comes and goes. But I think it's almost consistently seems like it's got the juice. But it's not as good. It doesn't do, like the voice stuff. Like image stuff. It doesn't even do images.
They're behind on that. Although another little fact that came up in this story and other ones as well is that Apple uses Claude internally for their development.
Yeah, but so does Meta. Like, yeah, everyone does, right?
Everyone uses Claude.
It's the best at code.
And it does seem like, because this was also in this story, that Apple have been working on, AI-assisted coding, like within Xcode.
Xcode, yeah.
And it seems like that is being abandoned in place of Claude, essentially.
Yeah.
Again, they've realized they're not going to compete. And this comes back to what we were just talking about before with the Meta stuff, where it's like, what is their pathway to competing if they wanted to?
Yeah.
When they're not going to pay $100 million for staff. Like, they clearly are not even in the race for acquiring this talent.
No.
And
they're not in the race for making the foundation models.
They're not in the race for buying NVIDIA chips.
No. They're not doing their own.
They're actually not. Even though, like, it's a complete...
But their own aren't even, like, AI first, right? Like, they're literally running them on chips. Don't get me wrong, they're mad chips, but like these are not AI workload chips.
It's not the thing. And it's a hilarious golden prison to be, where, like, I actually think for the past 15 years at least, there have been news stories being like, Apple has a war chest of $200 billion they're doing all sorts of financial chicanery on and gathering interest and whatever, but they're not doing anything with it. But when they fucking unleash that dry powder, watch out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're saying, what can they do with it?
Yeah.
They're not competitive for anything They could have, and obviously the conversation is: do they acquire Perplexity? Do they buy someone?
Shit idea, Perplexity. But anyway, that might
again, they're stuck in a weird thing where it's like they can buy Perplexity and get some talent, some tech, some IP, but the companies they would really want to acquire are now so far out of reach.
Yeah.
They're not going to spend $200 billion buying OpenAI, obviously.
$300 billion was their last valuation.
Yeah, exactly. $300 billion. They're not going to pay that. And Anthropic is way below that, but it's still, I think, like an $80 billion company. They're not going to pay that. They've never paid anything. Again, back to our conversation last week. Beats. Beats was a $3 billion acquisition, which was, by all accounts, disastrous culturally.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's why I think their only option is like that platform play. But at the end of the day, so what that means though is they have to have the best hardware. They take 30% of fucking subscriptions. Why not? Click the ticket or whatever the new paradigm is. Maybe it's 15%.
Who knows? Yeah.
A bit of regulation stuff. This is the issue. You all know we've been criticised in reviews of our podcast for being too
forgiving.
Loving Apple too much. On all of the Android ones.
It was one review, and it was very early in our tenure, but it still wounds us. We're being critical right now. We're saying they don't know what the fuck they're doing. In the words of DJT.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, like I think that the play right now, and this is, I'm just a bloke in Sydney, mate, who's just come second in a trivia contest, but I won the free jug because I picked in the cryptic Sydney suburbs thing. I picked it as Paddington. I nailed it.
You did. You nailed it. You yelled Tempe before that.
Before he asked the question, though, and he said that was actually the thing last week, which is crazy that I picked up on that. Think about that.
No, what are the chances?
Anyway. I take this all with a grain of salt. It's just a bloke who looks at this stuff with a little strategy in mind. To me, it makes sense that they lean into, they have the local hardware, they have the, I guess, distributed hardware to a certain extent. They have the distribution. We let the other models in. It is, to a certain extent, antithetical to Apple's like privacy focus, but they could probably do it in a way. With certain preferred partners, we ensure that it's safe. There's probably a bunch of encryption crap. What the Christ? Not me, mate. Is that you?
No. Maybe it's Pixie's phone. Anyway.
Whatever. Point being, we do it in this way. We've got these 3 or 4 partners. We clip the ticket on your subscription to them, but we are the platform that allows like your LLM of choice. Yes, I see that inevitably that leads to less friction with the switching costs between devices or whatever.
I mean,
but like, what else? What other option do they have?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the big takeaway from all this, and we said it earlier on, and it comes back to the ongoing discussion, both in the industry and in Down Round or whatever, about like, just how important is this stuff? How disruptive is it going to be to whatever? And I think one thing that you can say really clearly, without even getting to fucking GDP growth and productivity and disruption to the global economy, which you can hold whatever view, within the tech industry at the very least, there seems to have been a consensus that's been arrived to over the past few months that if you don't win this, you're fucked.
Yeah.
And that requires you to do crazy things. In the case of Meta, it's spending more money than anyone has ever spent on talent.
Like billions on a handful of talent.
Just a bunch of Chinese guys. You need to spend billions of dollars on the smartest Chinese guys you can find.
Which, to be honest, not the worst strategy.
No, it's on a world historical basis, that's been a good bet. In fact, for most of history, until the century of humiliation, that was a really good bet.
Yeah. I wouldn't jump in at even the 70s.
Even the ancient Romans, they didn't know who the Chinese were, but they knew that this silk was busted. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, like, match for inflation.
And for Apple, it is forcing them to do, essentially, as I said, undermine 50 years of corporate strategy and be like, what if we actually didn't control the platform.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. But again, the other option is they somehow work out AI really fast.
Yeah, exactly. To their new artificial deadline.
Yeah. With like competing against religious zealots in Anthropic, Chinese geniuses in DeepSeek and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
And the pockets of Mark Zuckerberg at $100 million signing bonuses. Like, somehow win there. And I haven't even mentioned OpenAI.
Exactly. The
leaders, like the
elephant in the
leaders.
room. Folk, it's rough. Anyway, we're going to move on to our premium episode now.
We got to talk about Cluely. I gave Cluely a shot.
We gave it a shot. We're going to talk about Cluely.
Cheat on everything, folks. Cheat on everything.
Yep. That's going to be the big, and if you've been on tech Twitter or, X over the past little while, you would have heard about Cluely. So we're going to dive into that. And I think there was a few other little bits and pieces as well. So if you're not subscribed to Down Around Premium, there has never been a better time to do it. Go to downaround.net. You can sign up. You can pay weekly. You can pay monthly. You can pay yearly. You can join our Discord. You get an extra episode every week.
No ads.
No ads.
Yeah, absolutely sign up. Like the amount of alpha that we give, absolutely insane.
It's insane. You will feel stronger and more vital in your daily life. And you'll get to hear us for an extra 40 minutes a week. That's the best deal on planet Earth right now. And we'll see you on the other side.